Hello and welcome to Health Center Dialogues from Downstate Medical Center, hosted by myself, Julie Black, along with my co-host, Lorraine Brooks. Welcome. So Lorraine,
So
we have a
Julie,
special guest here with us today.
we
Tell us
do.
about her.
Well, this is Chantel Stephen, one of our MPH students here at Downstate in the
Great.
Community Health Sciences track.
Yes.
And this is kind of a part two of a show that we did last week about HIV. And Chantel has a very interesting story. That's why we invited her back on the show. So thank you so much for agreeing
Thank
to
you
come
for
back on
having
the
Thank you.
show.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming back.
We were talking last week, if you remember, about HIV and how it has changed over the years and how some of the experiences that you and your colleagues might have had in dealing with HIV patients. I know you just came back from a field experience in Trinidad, and I know that you're from Trinidad.
Yes.
So you must have had quite an interesting experience, not just being there to work on your HIV interest, but you were also there as somebody who has a familiarity with the country and the way that things are done there. So can you explain to us a little bit about what some of the differences are between the way they treat HIV in Trinidad and here in New York? Because I'm sure that it's got to be almost like night and day, I would imagine.
Sounds
Yes.
interesting.
I think it's very different how they treat patients. First and foremost, I think I definitely would like to add in that in terms of the staff and how they treat their patients, it's very much like a love environment. You know, I feel like patients know that the staff cares. I have not experienced a staff maybe like looking down on a patient or, you know, just doing something that might not be fishy or might not be right. But I think that the staff they really are educated about HIV, and they really try their best to educate their patients about it.
That's the way we do it here in New York.
That's the way we
Okay.
do it here also.
Right.
But I do think in terms of social support that they're kind of lacking on that. They do have a social worker, and that this is on the STD side of the clinic. But in terms of the HIV side, there is not a social worker there to kind of deal with problems that.
Really? Because you know it's a kind of a shame to hear that, because
Right.
people who are afflicted with HIV and AIDS, certainly there are psychosocial issues that go along
Right.
with that particular disease. And I remember the last time that we discussed this topic, you were talking quite a bit about a stigma that was prevalent there, and how with this particular situation where you're saying that there's, you know, people are teaching them that, but they're counseling, but they just have one counselor
Right.
for the whole place. I mean,
Right. So usually the counselor from the STD side can be called over to the HIV side for any type of social needs.
Okay.
And then what I found is that the nurses and the doctors and the other healthcare professionals on the HIV side, they're kind of like the counselors.
Okay.
You know, they're doing adherence counseling, which, yeah, I would expect they would also do. But in terms of social support, in terms of, you know, how do I tell my family, there's, you know, people who have not told their families yet, who have not told their friends, and not that they should or, you know, have to tell them about this, but it's also dealing with stresses of no one knowing what you're going through. So I think social work, you know, on this social work in the HIV I'm sorry. Social work in the HIV clinic is critical, because, you know, we need to have an open dialogue with people coming into the clinic, you know, getting their medications.
Right. So
Especially since, as we said before, HIV is now becoming more of a chronic disease
Yeah.
than an acute disease, meaning that it really is something you have to deal with over the course of your lifetime. And if you are dealing with a chronic disease, you do need a lot of social support, and it is
Yeah.
important for you to open up a dialogue. I know for myself personally, I'm diabetic, and it's something that I found that I need to tell people, because it helps me. It helps me, first of all, if something happens to me, you need to know
Right.
what to do, or what might, you
Right.
know, what some of the things might happen. But apart from that, I think you really do need the support of other individuals around you. And I'm really surprised, as Julie was saying, I'm really surprised to hear that the social part of it is so lacking to me. I mean, in this country, that's one of the first things we do is gather up the support and
Yeah.
gather the information and help people to sort of
Right.
buoy them when
Yeah.
we tell them that you have this condition and that it is something you're going to have to deal with. So I'm really surprised to hear that as you are. Why do you think that is? Or
I
you
think that
have-
they are definitely concerned with treating, making sure that people who aren't linked to care do come in care.
Right.
So I think that's their first priority.
If I may interject then, I mean, treating is great, all right, but there should be, I would think, in terms of the counseling, more of an effort to teach them about how not to become infected and,
or how not to
learn
spread the
yeah,
disease.
and how
once you
not
know
to
you
spread
have
the
it.
disease. And with the lack of counselors talking to them about this particular issue, that's where it becomes more prevalent, because now we're spreading it amongst one another in ways that probably we wouldn't if we knew better. So
Right.
it's people go to counseling at the hospital or at the clinic. Is there nowhere else there that they can get this kind of education?
Well, I think they have some supportive HIV counseling sessions with the social worker here and there. But again, I think people, especially in Trinidad, counseling is seen as you have a problem. So you going to counseling or you having to see a social worker, it's kind of like, I have an issue and I don't want to be singled out that I have this issue.
So you have the
Where-
stigma of having HIV to begin with,
Right.
and then an additional stigma of asking for help and support.
Right. And I think the difference between when I worked at the HIV clinic at Harlem and here and in Trinidad is that supportive services, counseling was just a routine part of your care and treatment, right? So this is one aspect I think that Trinidad definitely would need to integrate, is having that routine part of treatment, so it doesn't single out counseling as you having an issue or a problem. So you meet with a social worker, she's asking you, how are you doing? She's asking, how are the kids? She's asking you about family and those support away from the clinical setting.
Wait, now, if I remember correctly, when we last discussed this, you even mentioned that there were no pamphlets and things to give out. Am I correct? Yes?
Right. So a doctor was conducting a study, and one of the questions asked, do you usually get pamphlets? And they would definitely say at the hospital, but there were no pamphlets being given out in the communities.
So once you've already been identified as an HIV patient and you're being treated, then
you
there's
most likely
information
you're coming in
available.
contact with
Okay.
with the information, or you would be able to get it at the STD side.
Right. See, now, Lorraine, here we have an abundance of services that are here for people, whether it's on the internet. I mean, people pass out pamphlets all the time, right? And they're
Sure.
everywhere you go, at your primary care office, whatever have you. So they don't get that kind of information there, and there's nobody going out into the different villages and towns.
So I
educating.
did participate in a community outreach, and this outreach is done mostly at clinics. So maybe it might be done at a clinic in a community setting. And what they would do there is they would do STD testing, maybe STD education for just people coming in that don't want to go into the clinic but just want to be tested for an STD. So in that way, people probably might get some information about STD and HIV, but I haven't yet participated in something that, we're going out to homes, we're going out to churches. And maybe they do have these programs, and, I probably was just not a part of it, but so far that's just what I witnessed.
Because we do a lot of that sort of outreach here,
Yeah,
as you say, churches. We have a program here through the Arthur Ashe Institute that goes out into beauty salons and barbershops.
Yeah.
And educates people about all kinds of conditions, breast cancer, HIV, all sorts of things. So it's surprising, but not really. I mean, I think here in the United States, we do have more of a focus on prevention.
Yeah.
And I think probably the rest of the world is just catching up
Right.
with that.
Right.
Do you think that, let me ask you about something that you yourself said, that HIV is referred to as the beast.
Yes.
And that is huge. I
Yes.
mean,
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it's
Discuss
huge,
that.
it's
What is the
hurtful.
beast?
it's hurtful, yes.
So-
It's scary.
I was sitting with a patient one day, and she was explaining to me because of the job that she had, it would require security at her job checking her bags. And she said, you know, when people see big pills in your bag, they associate that with you having the beast.
Wow.
So I'm like, what's the beast again? She's like, that's the other term they use for HIV.
So just going through someone's bag and seeing the type of medicine that they're taking
Yeah.
is enough for somebody to feel put upon or not
Yes.
wanting to.
Yes.
Wow.
Now, I kind of sort of remember this, you had this in your dissertation. I'm correct. So you're talking about a case study with this particular woman. She had a job, and she was afraid, obviously, for people to see her taking these big, huge pills. What other types of things would she be concerned about?
I think she was also concerned that not only are you taking big pills when you have this beast, but you lose a lot of weight when you have HIV. And just within that sentence, I knew that people aren't really educated about HIV because they should know that people are living longer and healthier lives.
Correct.
Sure.
Right? So someone living with HIV would look just like me.
Right.
They might look just like you. And it's not, HIV doesn't look a certain way.
No.
It doesn't have a face.
No.
Right? So the fact that she said that, I could imagine how many of her coworkers think that.
But
Or-
isn't that what stigma is really? I
Yeah,
mean, that's
true, it
exactly
is.
what it is. It's looking at somebody on the outside or just based on, you know, superficial qualities and making a judgment about who they are and how they live.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
They
know?
might not want to talk to you. They might not want you to touch them.
Right.
And then there's also this thing about not wanting to eat food that even
Yes.
the person's just prepared.
Right.
Not necessarily just that they prepared, right?
And still with so much HIV advancement, we see, and just from her experience, I saw that people still think, I don't know if they think that they can get HIV from eating from someone or drinking from someone, or it's just that they don't want to do it. Maybe they think, you
Don't
know,
wanna
there's
take
some
the
type of
chance or
risk.
be- right, exactly.
But we know in 2014 that we cannot get HIV from eating or drinking, right? So the fact that this young lady have to go through something like that on, you know, in her workplace, it's it's heartfelt.
Sure.
And in further talking about HIV and how she was dealing with it, I suggested to her, you know, I take vitamins every day.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe you can get a vitamin A bottle, a vitamin B bottle, and just put your pills right in there.
That's a great idea.
You know?
Yeah.
So that people would just look at it like you're taking your multivitamin, your multi supplement that
Yeah,
you take
every
daily,
day.
instead of, oh, she has those big pills at her, you know, in her bag.
You know, I remember too that you touched on something else, because it's not just the patients that are stigmatized. Oftentimes, it's the other people who are working with the people in the clinic, the HIV,
Right.
sexually transmitted disease or infection clinics, and they have their own level. Do you remember she was talking
Yes,
about this level
sure.
of stigma that they're going? Tell us a little bit about that,
Right.
and what's the issue there?
So for a week at my field experience, I was able to do wards rounds with
Okay.
some of the doctors, and one of the doctors mentioned that when you do not, when the upper or the supervisory staff do not like you, or they might feel some type of way towards you, most likely they will kind of push you in the direction of going to deal with HIV patients. But I did have one nurse that he shared that similar experience with me, but he said it developed a love in him for dealing with HIV patients. And that one nurse, he is extraordinary in how he deals with his patients. He taught me a lot about meeting people where they're at, talking to them at their level so that they understand. Like maybe, you know, they might not know CD4 count or T cells, but you could say good cells or bad cells.
Right.
You know, so he really taught me a lot about really talking to them like they were your friends, and making them understand what's going on in their body and how they can better, you know, live a better life.
And just overall, when we talk to you, who counsel people all the time about various different issues and things, we have to be very cognizant, myself as a healthcare provider, we have to be very cognizant of how we speak to the lay person.
Absolutely.
Because having them if they come to your office and they don't understand a thing you just said,
Yes.
you haven't done a thing,
Yeah,
right? You
no.
definitely haven't done a
No.
thing. So with regards to sexually transmitted infections or HIV, all this kinds of stuff, we have to be very careful about the verbiage,
That we
the
use.
terms that we use.
Right.
And so during your experience here, because you are going to school here at Downstate now,
Yes,
right? Which
yes.
program are you in?
I am in the MPH program with the Community Health Sciences track.
Okay.
And just to touch on talking to the layperson, I feel like one thing they definitely teach you here at the public health school is really talking to people in lay language.
Right.
You know, not using that big terminology, and thinking about the staff in Trinidad, they really knew how to talk to their patients. They really knew. I recalled a situation where we went to an outreach center, and a patient came in just to be tested for an STD. And he said, you know, what the community health worker was saying, well, you know, I'm just going to test you for all of these. And he's like, no, I can't deal with that socially nor mentally. I just need one test at a time.
Okay.
And I assure you, by the end of his test, he had did all his testing for everything. And he was so much educated on HIV, not only HIV, but STDs. And, you know, just how he can kind of curb maybe his actions.
Right.
And, you know, better take care of his sexual health.
No, and that's very important too, because a lot of people, I guess I shouldn't assume that people really don't realize, but a lot of these sexually transmitted infections are quote unquote associated with one another. You know, it's why when we have a conversation with our patients that we talk to them about the whole gamut of
Yes.
sexually transmitted infections. If somebody comes in and we find out that they have, let's just say, for instance, chlamydia from it, then you're going to want to go ahead and treat them, or actually test them, I should say, for gonorrhea, for HIV. You're going to want to test them rather for herpes,
Right.
trichomoniasis, and various other. Now, fortunately, a whole bunch of those are treatable with antibiotics, all right?
Including HIV.
Yeah. But the thing is that we know that HIV is something that's lifelong. It's a
Right.
virus. It's not treated itself with antibiotics. It's treated with antiretroviral
Antiretroviral,
medications, right?
Yeah.
And the heart therapy is the main group of medications that we use to treat those patients. But it's very important that people understand. And I know in my practice, when I was in family practice medicine, I had a big, huge thing about talking to the young population, the teenagers. Those are the ones who are out there more likely to engage in risky behaviors and those side, making sure that they're always protecting themselves, not just like the girls with the pill, but you need a condom.
Right.
You definitely
Yeah.
need a condom. I
Those
don't
are
know, Lorraine, what
preventive
kind of
ways.
programs do we have around here? Anything at all?
Well, we in terms of sexually transmitted diseases,
Yeah,
well,
teaching them
we
about
have
condom
we have
use
Sex
and-
in Medicine Week.
Yeah,
Oh, we
that's
just
going
had
on
that.
right
which
now.
every year that we excuse me, every year that we have a whole week of activities, student generated activities that talk about things like that. And I can remember, I don't know if we did it this year or not, I'm assuming we did, but I can remember
did.
having, I know we did Sex and Medicine Week, but we had, back in the day, we used to have big barrels and bowls of condoms that were just on
yes.
display everywhere, and you could just take a handful or as many as you wanted. And that was our way of sort of destigmatizing
Right.
the protection part of it. I think it's really important, and that's why we do these shows and why we have people like yourself on, because we want to break the silence. We want to talk about it. It, you know, anything that you have, anything that you're suffering from, any condition that that's part of your life is always, in my opinion, diminished when you talk about it.
Right.
It
Of
is a
course.
beast if you're not going to talk about it.
Of course.
It is a beast if everyone that you think you're going to encounter is going to have a particular reaction to you. Then of course you're going to feel like this thing is a beast, and you could feel that way about any disease that you have. It doesn't necessarily have to be HIV. But getting back to your experience in Trinidad, because Trinidad is part of the Caribbean. It's a Caribbean island, and as such, I think, you know, often we in New York or we in the United States, we just assume everybody does things the way we are,
Right.
the way we do.
Right.
But do you know, or can you speak to the level of insurance? Are there many uninsured people, or how do they pay for their treatment? Is it something? Is it like here?
In terms of what I saw, you know, paying for treatment is not a problem, because one of the ways that they destigmatize stigma is to have the pharmacy right in the HIV clinic. So as soon as you finish seeing the doctor,
there you
you
go.
go right over to the pharmacy and you get your medication.
Okay.
Right? So I thought that was fantastic.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's one of the way I didn't really encounter problems with, you know, paying insurance wise. And just to kind of touch on STD and educating, the STD side of the clinic definitely does an amazing job in educating its patients. A lot of the times I sat in with the social workers who met with clients who engage in risky behaviors.
Okay.
And how they deal with it is not that they don't only talk to patients, but they also have these pictures that they show them of what chlamydia looks like,
Oh.
of what gonorrhea looks like. And you know, it was young patients, older patients, so that's kind of, they incorporate these pictures to show you if this is what's happening. You know, if we were to get chlamydia, if you were to get syphilis, if you were to get herpes, this is what it looks like, and this is the damage that it can do.
Really, I can imagine the aghastment, you know, because
Yes.
sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. I know, would you agree, Lorraine? You
Absolutely.
can talk about it to the day is long.
Yeah.
But when people actually see, you know, what can possibly happen, that's when they start to really
Yeah,
get it.
they get
you
it.
know, that how important it is to protect yourselves at all time against any of these types of diseases. In our last program, we had a gentleman here who was working with the Star Clinic, and you know, he was talking about Kaposi sarcoma, which is something that you don't see that often because now with the medications that they have, you don't see it that often. But it used to be years ago, you would see people, and it's like you wear your disease on your face or outwardly. You know, with sexually transmitted diseases, most of the time people don't see them because they're down in our private parts and people don't see it, right?
see it,
But it's very important, and there are a lot of different sequelae or things that can happen because, you know, women can become, you know,
Yeah.
barren
If it
n-
goes
to the,
untreated.
yes, if it goes untreated, that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
men often don't manifest the same kinds of symptoms that women
that's
do.
interesting.
That's true, like, especially for things like chlamydia.
Right.
They don't get the same sort of discharge that that men get. So a lot of times it goes undiagnosed, and it can go undiagnosed for quite some time.
time.
Yeah. So
Well, I
there
think
are
that's
lots of
you know
things to
that's
know.
another reason to open up the dialogue, because I think a lot of people don't even realize that men and women get different symptomatology, or that men can
True.
even get the same disease. You know, you think of chlamydia as more of a female thing, but men get chlamydia, men get breast cancer, men get a lot of things, and it's so
Absolutely.
important
Yeah.
for us to be honest and open about it. And it not only reduces some of the stigma, but it helps you to feel like you're part of a larger community, that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
also what I find when I counsel clients here as well, that it helps to have people who are living with the disease talk to people who are
Right.
newly diagnosed.
Right.
Is that something that you found in Trinidad, or that we do here?
I definitely think here have more supportive services in terms of people who are positive, talking to people who are newly diagnosed, and I think there are a few programs
We need that.
that you know is happening in the U.S. But in Trinidad, I have not seen that kind of dialogue happening between HIV positive people and the newly diagnosed.
Okay.
Do you
I
think you'll
haven't
go
seen
back to Trinidad?
Yes, I would love to go back to Trinidad and do HIV work and
Okay.
help. Yeah, I would really love to do that.
Well, I tell you, this has been quite an interesting conversation. It's definitely information that the listening and viewing public needs to know about. You know, like we say, these diseases can manifest in all kinds of different ways. I mean, you can have chlamydia of the eyes, and you know, and just all kinds of things. So definitely, pictures are worth 1,000 words. And we thank you for taking the time to come and share with us your experience. Ms. Lorraine, I know that she invited you on, and it's good to have you back. But for our audience out there, we really need you to be careful and safe in everything that you do.
Yes.
This is what we said last time, right? And we want to encourage people to educate themselves and learn more about HIV,
Yes.
sexually transmitted diseases, sexually transmitted infections is the politically correct way to say it. Any last words, Ms. Lorraine?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for being on the show. Chantel, again, it was a pleasure to meet with you again. And to remind everybody to continue to tune in to Health Center Dialogues. And thank you for watching.
That's right. Something
Thank you.
Dialogues right here at Downstate Medical Center. Right?
Welcome to the School of Public Health at SUNY Downstate. Brooklyn, New York is one of the most diverse and vibrant urban environments in the United States, a true melting pot of people from all over the world. SUNY Downstate's central Brooklyn location provides a unique opportunity to work with diverse cultural groups and immigrant populations. As such, we're able to see firsthand the broad spectrum of health issues facing our multicultural community. And at SUNY Downstate, we boast a faculty and student body as diverse as the communities they serve. Our small class sizes and low student-to-teacher ratio offer a truly personal approach to graduate education. Because our courses are offered mostly in the evening, our Masters of Public Health program and Doctorate in Public Health programs are ideal for working professionals. Brooklyn is not only an ideal place to study public health, it is also an amazing place to live and work. With stunning views of Manhattan, a rich array of parks, world-renowned art and music scenes, and foods and flavors from around the world, Brooklyn offers a feast for all of the senses. In the fall of 2014, the School of Public Health will be housed in a new, beautiful, state-of-the-art building. So come along with us now as we hear from students and faculty about why SUNY may be the perfect place for your graduate studies in public health.